Hello, BookTube. As you will know, the three of you who watch them anyway, on Wednesdays, Michael K. Vaughan and I make our Epic Comic Book Wednesday videos where we talk about a shared subject, a run or a character or an idea or something like that. This week it was Prince Namor the Submariner, which was a great deal of fun. I could have gone on for 2 hours. I had a guest, or I would have gone on a lot longer. But today, or yesterday, I had a chance to swing by my LCS, my local comic shop, where one of the guys who works there, Adam, is wonderful. He's wonderful at customer service. The shop is wonderful. The people there are wonderful, and he has put aside a bunch of things for me, and I just haven't been able to get there. I know this is going to sound very geriatric of me, but the problem that I have with Newbury Comics on Newbury Street is that they open at 11. And that is late in the day for doing errands for me. My errands tend to start very, very early, and usually they are wrapped up well before 11. So a couple of times I've been presented with the possibility of crossing the city and just waiting outside the comic shop for it to open, and I just can't do that. But this time, because I have a guest and because we were out and about, the timing was perfect. So I swung by Newbury Comics and I got a bunch of comics. I don't know if Michael K. Vaughan and I will ever be talking about any of these things. I doubt it, but I thought I would show them to you. Now, one of the things that the sort of informal arrangements that I have with Adam is to set aside Superman related stuff. Superman is my favorite DC character, at least of the existing characters. Is Superboy. The Adventures of Clark Kent when he was a teenager in Smallville is my favorite superhero. But Superboy, The Adventures of Superman when he was a boy, does not appear to exist anymore. So I'll definitely take Superman, even though the character has been poorly done, intentionally mishandled, sidelined in favor of political point scoring or Twitter politics or whatever. Many, many times he's the #1 candidate for that sort of thing, the original Big Blue Boy Scout. But that isn't true now in DC, apparently. I really don't follow weekly comics anymore, so I'm not really sure of my ground here, but I got a stack of Superman issues and also a hardcover that is not Superman. And I wanted to show you. The first one is World's Finest, which I mentioned just the other day in a video. Mark Waid, the writer Mark Waid, was given the chance to relaunch World's Finest, which is team-ups of just an ongoing monthly team-up of Batman and Superman, which has a long history in DC Comics, but hasn't been a comic in a while. For a long time, DC had a fairly good-selling book called Batman/Superman, where they teamed up every month. And old-timey fans wrote letters saying, why don't you call this World's Finest? why on earth would you make this comic and not call it that? They relaunched it, and it is great. The relaunch of World's Finest is fantastic. It's one of the only surefire bets for a 4-color superhero comic book that you can buy every month. That won't have any Twitter politics. It won't have demonization of any kind of social group. It won't have endless scenes of characters eating and talking about what they're eating. It won't have any kind of speculation on whether or not Captain America is a virgin. It won't be any of this dumb stuff written by blue-haired activists who hate comic books only a little bit less than they hate comic book fans. The superhero comic book world, the world of the weekly issues that I used to love, is absolutely infested with such people. The books ordinarily drip with contempt, just flying in all directions, except for a small select group that are on the right side of history, that are, if they're okay in the all-knowing eyes of the 30-something writer. Somehow or other, World's Finest under Mark Waid has just avoided all of that completely. I almost wonder if maybe it was kind of either a condition of DC Comics or it was a condition of Mark Waid. It seems too surefire to be accidental. But whatever the reason is, I'm very much enjoying it. So I got World's Finest number 12, where Robin and Supergirl go out on a date. They go to a restaurant for a date. That's it. There's some action. There's a truck that breaks open and bowling balls go flying everywhere. But this is mainly Mark Waid doing comedy, and it is genuinely funny. We break from the disastrous. Their date is a disaster, and not because of bowling balls or rampant monkeys or anything or supervillains, but just because Robin can't stop saying the wrong thing, and Supergirl is fairly clueless herself. It's just the action of their dinner date is broken up by flashbacks and flash forwards to Robin talking with Batman and Supergirl talking with Superman about the other person and about the date. And I loved it. Absolutely loved it. It's a self-contained issue, which is also something that I love, but it was just delightful. Just absolutely delightful. Who knew that Mark Waid had that kind of a talent for comedy? Then we have a thing that is what I'm talking about, that I'm not up on the weekly comics, so I don't know what this is. There's something that DC is doing now called Dawn of DC. And I don't, the searches that I've done online, the answers are very vague. I don't actually know what this means. But it was accompanied by a first issue of Superman, Superman #1. They did the renumbering of Superman at 1. See, Dawn of DC? No idea what that's supposed to signify. But here we have Superman and a lot of his cast. You have the mystery villain, who isn't revealed in this issue. You have Lex Luthor. You have a couple of other villains. There's Bizarro, flying upside down, of course. You have standard characters like Jimmy Olsen, Lois Lane, and Perry White, and the Kents, and the Daily Planet. This character is the new head of the Metropolis Special Crimes Unit. And seemed like a fascinating character. I don't follow these comics. I haven't anyway, so I don't know anything about that character. But this was really good. It was a really good first issue. This is written by Joshua Williamson with art by Jamal Campbell, and the artwork is vivid, just really, really vivid. I loved it. Thought it was really, really good. It is classic Superman. The attitude, the spit curl, the hair, the cape, the morals. It doesn't seem. I didn't detect. I went into it, of course, waiting for the subversion, for the subverting expectations, for the we hate you. We really hate you. We hate everything you like. And we are in the position now to destroy it, to deface it. So that's what we're going to do. I didn't detect any of that in this. I got to the end. It's a cliffhanger ending, and I want the next issue, which is just what a comic book should make me do. And then there's Action Comics, which also has this Dawn of DC banner. This is 1051. I got 1051 and 1052. Very similar covers, meant to underscore the fact that there are now a huge number of members of what is referred to as the Superman family. There's Supergirl, there's John Kent, Superman's teenage son. There's two adopted twins that Superman adopted from Warworld in a storyline that I really didn't follow. I don't know what their powers are. They seem to have Kryptonian powers. I don't know how that could be. And there's Connor Kent, who's a clone. There's a whole bunch of other super characters, like half a dozen of them. And these issues were also really, really good. They have they're split up, so there's a main story with artwork by, I should probably credit that if I'm going to talk about it. This is written by Philip Kennedy Johnson with art by Rafa Sandoval. And the artwork is really good for the opening section. Rafa Sandoval draws the opening section, but there are backup sections, one of which is drawn by Lee Weeks, who's fantastic. Let me get you yeah, there we go. And these are set in John Kent's boyhood, when before John Kent was mysteriously aged up into a teenager who recently was headlining in Superman's comic as Superman and as ostentatiously gay with a pink-haired boyfriend. The backup story by Lee Weeks is set in the time period that Lee Weeks drew really well a long time ago, a time period that's entirely beloved by Superman fans. It was kind of funny. One of the bits of research that I read on Dawn of DC and what that means when I was online mentioned that John Kent Superman is a beloved character. That is absolutely not true. That is simply propaganda. No Superman fan wants John Kent to be a teenager. They don't care whether he's gay or straight. They don't want him to be a teenager. They want him to be a little boy, like in that backup story. That was a great period. That should have gone on for a long time. But anyway. And then the last Superman thing that I got was the final issue of Superman Space Age, which is an Otherworld story, whether it says so or not. It's definitely not normal Superman continuity. And it's a big story. It's got Mike Allred artwork, which I'm a big fan of his artwork. It's takes a little getting used to. It's a little weird, a little mannered, a little stiff, more than a little stiff. But I've really been enjoying this story. I don't have any investment in it. It's not canon of any kind. But and so I don't really care when the writer uh, who is the writer of this thing? Mark Russell and Mike Allred. No, Mark Russell is the writer, and his characterizations here are wildly wrong, especially the Flash, who is an imbecile. But I don't really care. I was going after it for the really big story, and there is a really big story that Superman is dealing with in the course of Space Age. But this issue has an unbelievably gripping little sub-story about Batman and the Joker. Did not see it coming. And it's really, really good. It's really disturbing. The ending of that little this is the ending of the miniseries, and the ending of that little story about Batman is more powerful than any of the Superman stuff in any of the issues. And then the final thing that I got at the comic shop was a big hardcover. This is Aquaman, the 80 Years of the King of the Seven Seas. A big anthology of the other aquatic superheroes. So we were dealing with Prince Namor the Submariner, but here we're dealing with Aquaman. So it takes you through all the different periods of the character's incarnation. The death of his son. The Aquaman story has some pretty noticeable landmarks. I got the book mainly for the artwork. This is going to have great Jim Aparo artwork. This is going to have Nick Cardy, who's an undersung but absolutely fantastic comic book artist from the ye olden days. But Aquaman, his story has some landmarks that even people who don't really follow his comic will know. That he is a major superhero character who loses an infant son. As an infant son dies, that's extremely rare. That does not happen in comics. And this happened a long time ago, before comics became the sadomasochistic playdown that they are today. It was startling then. Aquaman also had an ill-advised costume change. We saw, when we were talking about the Submariner, I mentioned that briefly he did have a costume change, and it was really good costume, very effective. The story where Aquaman has a costume change is included in this anthology, and his costume change was, let's just say, not quite as effective. So let me see if I can get it for you. It was downright weird. I remember, yeah, here it is. I remember getting this issue. He changed from his absolutely signature gold and green chainmail to this thing, this sort of sensuous blue and black body tard. It didn't last very long. But there was also a period where Aquaman didn't have one of his hands, where one of his hands is bitten off by a bunch of piranhas, and he has a hook for a hand. And then later on, the character disappears, and the writer Jeff Johns wanted to bring him back and upgrade him, bring him back and make him more interesting, make him more real. And it largely worked. In a really good way, it largely worked. And one of the things that you have to do, if you're going to do that, is to upgrade Aquaman's power set. For a long time, including a lot of the issues collected in this anthology, he was just a guy who could swim underwater and telepathically talk to fish. But that's it. He didn't have any other superpowers. If you punched him, if a normal guy punched him, it would hurt. It would be effective. But that wouldn't be true. If you live at the bottom of the ocean and you are a mutant, which Aquaman kind of sort of technically is, you could have powers. It's wide open that you could upgrade this character believably, provided you're not making him Superman level. You could do that, and Jeff Johns decided to do that, and it works really well. And we've seen that now enshrined in the DC cinematic universe. But one of the moments that we see that is when Aquaman is foiling a bank robbery. And he's standing in front of the car as it's driving straight towards him, and he holds up his trident at the car. Now, the Aquaman that existed for 79 of those 80 years would have been flattened by that truck, and that would be the end of it. And clearly the drivers of the truck think that too. But Jeff Johns' Aquaman can flip the thing over. He's got enormous physical strength, multiple tons that he can lift rather easily. And also, when the criminals open fire, we learn the trident is bulletproof, the chainmail is bulletproof, and Aquaman is largely bulletproof. He takes a bullet straight to the head, and all it does is make him angry. That was rather neat. I remember reading that. I got the issue that this was in when it first came out, and I remember thinking, yeah, I can live with that, definitely. You're not overpowering this character, but you are bringing him up to a level that he should have been at all along. And plus the sort of fashion decision to keep trident, to make sure that he has his trident with him at all times. That also works really well, and that also wasn't true for most of the issues that are in here. So glad to have it. I'm sure that I will go back and revisit this anthology quite often, because I was buying Aquaman comics for a long time in a lot of these different periods. Let me show you. Yeah, this. This is Aquaman number 46 of, I think, his second run. This was 15 cents and well worth it. Look at this cover. How amazing. You did this to her, and now you die. And you don't have any idea who this is. What a cover. I remember seeing that on the comic stand and just loving it. So there you go. It was just a random video about comics that doesn't involve an epic team up. This is a rare visit to the comic shop. Now, my guy Adam is gonna continue to set things aside for me, and I continue to make special requests. He's gonna set aside everything Superman related, and I also make special requests. I requested this Aquaman volume and a couple of other things coming up that I want. It's nice. It's nice to do that at a comic shop rather than, you know, hunt around for some cheap price on Amazon, if the comic shop is on my route. It often isn't. It's often more of an ask than that, which is why for years I was asking Mark Richardson and his wife to get comics for me at their comic shop and mail them to me. That just seemed, the more I thought about that, they were nice enough to do it, but that is so extravagant when Boston has comic shops. So, and there's also Comixology, which is part of Amazon, where you can just, you know, you can click on a comic and it's instantly on your tablet. So, no going out in the rain or the sleet at all. But anyway, I will certainly go back to this comic shop the next time my pile gets big enough to warrant a trip. I'll have to do it. I'll have to do errands late that day. But anyway, those are some Superman comics and an Aquaman volume to tide you over, and I will be back. Thank you, Booktube.